I want to show you how to do graphing with Google Sheets. And we're going to do this with the gas laws data. But the same process applies to any kind of graph. So here's what you need to do. And pause this video at any time. Rewind it if you need to see something again. But here's how you do it. Go to your Google Drive, click on New, click on Google Sheets. It'll give you a new blank spreadsheet like this. I would immediately click on the title, after it's done working, of course, and rename it Gas Laws Lab. All right. Now, the way this works is this is basically a place where you can put in data and you can do any mathematical operation, a whole bunch of other things to it. But it's set up perfectly for a data table. So what you need to do is look at your lab and type that information here into this chart. Now, I happen to have one for myself that I've already created over here. Looks like this. Yes, I'm going to show you how to do that chart. And I'm going to highlight it and put it over here by using Control-C and going back to my tab and hitting Control-V. And I'm just going to paste this in. Boyle's Law data first, number of manuals. If you grab right here, you can actually drag this out and make it wider. And I have highlighted all of this after I've typed it in and hit center over here. Told it I want it all centered. So what I'm trying to do is I want it to graph all this data on a single graph. Here's how you do that. Once you have this all typed in, type in the number of manuals first. That's your independent variable. That's the thing you control. So it always goes first. And type in your two trials. Then highlight everything, including the headings, in that square. Go to Insert and insert a chart. Now, Google's very helpful. It gives you some suggestions. These are all wrong. But they're kind of close on mine. They're not too far off, but they're not right. We don't want to do a dot-to-dot graph. The recommendations are not good. Click on Chart Types, drag it down, and find the scatter plot. Click on that. That's correct. And now we click on Customization. So there are a bunch of things we need to change. First of all, we need to change the title. This is going to be Boyle's Law. I'm just going to leave it at that. I want the legend over on the right. I can change any of that, so can you. You can change the font, change the background if you want. I wouldn't maximize the features, but you can change all of these and mess with them. Scroll down and change these axes. Now this one, where it says axis horizontal, it needs to say number of manuals. And this should be capitalized because it's a title. Number of manuals. You can change your axis labels if you want, and whether it's slanted, all those sorts of things. Change anything that you want to change in there. Then, if you click on this and pull it down, you can change the left axis. Notice there's no title on that. That's going to be volume in cubic centimeters. And the up arrow is over the 6. Volume in cubic centimeters. Or you can use cc's. You always put your units on there if you're not just counting numbers. And so when I click off of that, it's updated there. The spacing on this looks great. I'm not going to change it. Go down here. If you want to change that, you can change it right here. But again, you have to change the axis. Now, I don't like the horizontal axis. I didn't use 2.5 manuals or 7.5 manuals. So I'm going to come in here and go down to the grid lines. Grid lines means how many vertical lines are there. If you count, including the axis itself, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I don't like that. I'm going to go with 6. Because if I do 6, it counts by 0, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. And that's much more realistic. You could do 12 if you wanted. But anyway, that's how you set that up. Scrolling down a little bit further, here's the information that I'm looking for. Do you want to change the shape? You want to change, you can change anything. You can change trial 1 series or trial 2. You can say, okay, I want it to show up if I were to print it. I want these to be squares, and I want trial 2 to be something like a different color or diamonds or whatever you want. You can change your shapes. I'm just going to mess it up and make them stars. All right. Next point. This is an important one right here. Trend line. You want this trend line because you want it to be graphed with a line. And if you switch back to trial 1 and go back down and do it again, you can actually do a trend line for both. This shows you that it is a linear graph. It's a line graph. It would take you a long time to calculate the equation for this line and draw it on there accurately. Now, in the past, we've just used a ruler and drawn it on, but that's how you do what's called a best fit line or a trend line. That looks beautiful. It has a good title. it has the volume on the side, the number of manuals here, and then you click Insert. And there's your graph. Now, grab it by the edges here, by the middle, drag it and drop it up here near it. You can scale it. If you decide to change anything, you can pull down this menu and go back to Advanced Edit and change any of those features you messed up. But that looks pretty good, so click off of it and drop it. Now, you need the other graph for Charles' Law. I'm scroll down here and find myself some blank space. Oh, let's just say right about here. That ought to do it. I'm not sure. Just scroll up a little bit. Yeah, it looks like it's good there. So I'm going to come down here and I'm going to put in my Charles' Law. I, again, happen to have that already typed in. Actually, the graph I did looks better than the one that's on this page. So I've typed all my data in. I'm going to do a little bit more with this. Copy it with Control-C, go to the Gas Lab, or Gas Laws sheet, and paste it in. You have to type it in, unfortunately. And I don't like the spacing on this. I'm going to make it a little bit bigger. And again, if you highlight it all and click on horizontal align or center align, you can line it up the way you want. Now, this one we have to do something else with. You're going to grab Trial 1 and Trial 2, highlight them all, then move until your pointer turns into hand and drag it over one space, because what we really want is a column that's called the average volume. And that is also in cm3, cubic centimeters. I'm going to widen that column out after I click off of it so it all shows. Now, I don't want to figure this out by hand. So here's how you do a formula. Formulas always start with an equal sign. Then you have to actually, just like you're playing Battleship. Remember in Battleship you say C4, and your partner has to say whether you hit or missed. Well, these are referenced the same way, by the column name and the row number. So I want to average these two together. So I need to actually add them. Now, what I just did, you can't do it that way. So I have to type in equals, put it in parentheses, C22 plus D22. Close your parentheses and divide that by 2. That's the average. So you see where I got that? This is C22 and this is D22. And I'm going to add this together and divide by 2. I had to put it in parentheses. Now the nice thing is if you highlight like this, highlight the 30 and then drag downwards and press Control D for down, it will copy everything down. And it modifies, if you read up here, it modifies your formula to refer to the new row. Because it knows, oh, you just want the same formula, but add the next two numbers together. Add the next two numbers. So it does the average for you. Now what's left to do? Okay, so I'm going to highlight the temperature and the average. And again, I'm going to go to Insert, Chart. And I'm going to tell it, I want a scatter plot because you're dumb, Google, and you don't know what a good graph looks like. And then I'm going to click on Customization, and I'm going to change it. That is a terrible, terrible title. What was this law? Well, this one was Charles' Law, with apostrophe S on it. Charles' Law. The legend can be over on the right. That's fine. I really don't need a legend on this one because there's not more than one. So you can say none. Legend not necessary. Or you can leave it. Doesn't matter. I need to rename the horizontal axis as temperature degree C. That one's fine. If it's not that, you can change it. Left vertical, average volume in cubic centimeters. That's correct. And I don't need to change the axes really. I've got temperatures on here that are okay. I don't really like that. I'm going to go with 6 again because that'll make it, look what I did. I'm going to change it back to 5. I forgot to change this right here on the axis to horizontal. Now, I can take this and I can set it to be 6 grid lines and get rid of my Facebook notifications. And now I see 20, 40, 60, 80, 100. All right. That graph looks good, but I still need that trend line. So I do a linear fit, and there's my trend line. Best fit line. Insert it. Drag it over into position, and I have done the graphs for this lab. You can answer the questions right on this particular worksheet, and notice what it says, all changes saved in Drive. So when you go to turn this in, you're going to actually add this to your Google Classroom assignment and turn it in. Okay? All right, thanks for watching. Hope that answers your questions.